with Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw. That would be the WWE Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco, and we got a Guerrero. That's all you need to know. He's an ECW champion. He's a multi-time tag team champion, cruiserweight champion. He's all Mr. Hollywood now. Most importantly, he's a Guerrero. And if he's a Guerrero, he's a good man, and he is. Mr. Chavo Guerrero. Welcome to the show, Chavo.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me, guys. And I can see that you still got that golden tongue, brother. It's gold. It's gold. You're the shits in the ring, but on that mic, you're amazing.
Hey, and I'm still putting over a Guerrero.
I tell you what, hey, truth being said, and this is not because I'm on your podcast, I've wanted to tell you this for a long time. That night when Eddie passed and you asked to work with me in the ring and we got in the ring and tore it down, you know, hey, I'd already been a multiple-time tag team champion. I had already been cruiserweight champion. I don't know how many different times, whatever, thought I knew what was going on. I got in the ring with you, man. When I got out of that ring, my eyes were amazed. I said, I have to step my game up. That's God's honest truth. I was like, that's what it is. That's what, to be a champion, a heavyweight champion in this business, the WWE champion, that's what you got to do. That's the truth.
Oh, thank you. That was it was such a terrible tragedy. It was such a great honor, though, to be able to work with you on that night.
Brother, thank you, Ben. You were already on top of the world, and you put me over 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, bro. That was. Thank you. Always.
Hey, I put Ever Guerrero on I've ever wrestled.
You're right. You're right.
John, I've known a few more than you, but Chavo, first of all, man, welcome to our show. You know, through several attempts, we finally got together. You know,
yes, sir.
We booked you, and we've had to cancel you. Then we rebooked you again, and now we got you on here. But man, what a pleasure! I go way so far back with the Guerrero family. You know,
I know you
back to the old El Paso days, running the show there, that old El Paso Coliseum there, an old barn there we used to go in. But what a thrill it is to have you on and just to listen to some of your stories and get up to date on Chavo Guerrero. But you're sitting in front of a historic photo there. Tell us a little bit about it. Chavo versus Piper in a world famous Olympic auditorium in LA, owned by the LaBelle family. So
That's right. Eileen Eaton, the mother of the Bells. So the Olympic, for anybody who didn't know the Olympic, that was the Madison Square Garden of the West. I mean, every Muhammad Ali fought there. They used to call it a war week. Don Shargan used to put a war week of boxing every single week and would book these amazing fights every week there. Plus it had the roller derby, plus it had the wrestling with Freddie Blassie and John Tolos and anybody had gone through the Olympic Auditorium. Before they used to go to Japan, they'd stop off in LA, wrestle in LA, and go to Japan. So, you guys have been there, you wrestled there. My father was wrestling there. He was their babyface at the time, and a young heel named Roddy Piper was there. Roddy was about 19 years old. My dad was about 24 years old. That the wrestling business there had been declining a little bit after Freddie Blassie had left and a couple other ones had left. And they had these two to bring it back up, and they sure did. And you had Roddy Piper, a magic on the mic, and he was tormenting the Guerrero family. They had a huge rivalry. Him and my dad were actually, rivals in the ring, but outside the ring, they were really good friends. But Roddy was so good, and the kayfabe was so strong back then that and I'm just telling you guys the same way I would tell a fan, anybody listening, but it was so strong that he would just do stuff on the mic and wouldn't tell anybody. So he apologizes to the Mexican American fans there, because they had lost their channel 13 TV and now they were on like channel 52, which was a Hispanic station. And he has apologized to the fans in Los Angeles and said, I'm so sorry. The way I've treated the Guerrero family and what I've done is just not right. And I'm here to apologize. And I'm going to apologize to the top. I'm going to apologize to the matriarch of the Guerrero family, Mrs. Guerrero. Mrs. Guerrero, come on out here. So they bring out a donkey, a legit real donkey. My dad doesn't know anything about this. He's in the back. He's doing what? There was no monitors back then, you know, like in the dressing room. You were just in the dressing room getting ready for their match, and they're like, he's doing what? What's going on? And he's talking to the donkey, and he said, Mrs. Guerrero, I'm very sorry the way I've been treating your family, the way I've treated your son. Oh, what's that? And the donkey's going, hee-haw, hee-haw. And he's like, oh, I'm your favorite wrestler. Oh, you wish I was your son. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I'm not your son. I can't be. And he went on and on. The people booed him so much. Well, he walked into the back in the dressing room, and my dad was going to fight him, legit, straight shoot fight him. He was like, what are you doing? And Roddy said, amigo, relax, you know, because Roddy and my dad were both hotheads. And he was like, you knew them both.
Breaking news.
You knew them both very volatile. Well, my dad was like, what are you doing? And Roddy was like, amigo, listen to the people. It's money. They're hot. Listen. So the next week, he doesn't tell my dad again. And he goes, now he gives the mic. And he goes to the people, and they're booing the heck out of him. He goes, I'm very sorry. What I did last week was so childish. It was so wrong. What I'm going to do now is to make it up to y'all, I'm going to play the Mexican national anthem on the bagpipes. So Jimmy Lennon Sr. is there. Jimmy Lennon Sr. goes, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the Mexican national anthem. Everybody stopped. It was a serious moment. Everybody rose, and Roddy's testing, blows up that bag of the bagpipes, and he starts playing La Cucaracha. La Cucaracha, La Cucaracha. They wanted, first of all, the fans wanted to kill him. Then he gets into the back, and then my dad wants to kill him. And he's like, first you're disrespecting my family, now you're disrespecting my country. And Roddy goes, amigo, relax, listen to the people, listen. And sure enough, the next week when they came out for TV, standing room only, literally every sold out, packed to the rafters, and the rest is history.
Wow. And Roddy was only 19 at the time.
He was 19 when he started there. He may have been 20 at this time, but he was a
Holy
young.
I mean, to be that young and be that creative and have that much heat, I mean, that's unbelievable.
It was really unbelievable. And my dad used to say that if he wasn't a pro wrestler, he could have been a comedian. He could have been anything he wanted to, because his he has no Roddy. He had the gift of gab. He was like you. He had the gift of gab, brother.
We had Ron Funches, a world famous comedian, on, and we were talking about, his favorite comedians and his favorite wrestlers. I was a huge wrestling fan, as you know, Ron. I mean, he was a huge wrestling fan. So, of course, he brought up Hot Rod. When he was watching Hot Rod after Hot Rod wrestling career was over, he wanted to learn stand-up comedy, so he went to the comedy club there in L.A. And all the comedians just kind of gravitated to him because they were huge wrestling fans, the Piper fans. But he said Piper was such a natural that he could have been a mega superstar as a stand-up.
Just gold. He just had his delivery, the way he would pause before he would say a certain part of the story, and then his inflections. I mean, you saw it in his promos, but he's gold, man.
It's that timing, and when you got timing, I mean, you got verbal timing, and Roddy had that physical timing too. And boy, you put the two of them together, you got a major superstar.
And you guys know that your best friend in wrestling is timing, and it's something you cannot teach. You either have it or you don't have it.
Yeah, you can refine it a little bit, but you're right. You either have it or you don't. You can't teach feel.
You're right. You can say you can time, you can hone it in, and you can get better at it, but you cannot teach it. You can't teach somebody, okay, you need to pause here, you need to listen to the fans. It's that sixth sense that just comes with being in the ring, and that it comes naturally. Some people have it better than other people.
Yeah, that's true. And, as a teacher, and all three of us are teachers, we all three like to pass down our knowledge, especially you out in California now with your new career that you got going, and you're able to pass it down, and a lot of these actors, they have that natural timing, but when it comes to the ring sense, do you notice a little difference between the ring sense timing and the delivery, your verbiage timing too?
Absolutely. Once you're playing in front of a stage with 10, 20,000 people, your time is definitely going to be different because you're not just playing for 20,000 people, you're playing to 6 cameras and millions of people watching on TV. Your timing is going to be different because your inflections are going to be much bigger. You're playing to so many people, you're so much bigger. But then when you're doing stuff on camera, you have to really, really bring it down so your timing changes.
Well, Chavo, let's talk a little bit. We jumped ahead, way ahead to what you're doing now, but in the beginning, like what was your age at the time? Were you born at the time when Chavo Classic and Piper were headlining Olympics? Or what? I know your family. I mean, I've known them forever. Like I said before, a lot of them come from a great amateur background, also. Right? Were you a part of that? I know your dad was a coach and a very successful coach, also.
Yeah, we grew up with a wrestling ring in our backyard, but we were not even allowed to hit the ropes until we were amateur wrestlers. That would want to be climbing the ropes, and me and Eddie would always do it, when they weren't looking. But I wanted them to teach me pro wrestling. They would not teach me pro wrestling. They were keep it on the mat, amateur, amateur, amateur. My grandfather was teaching us jiu-jitsu before we even know what jiu-jitsu was. Judo. He was a huge judo fan. Striking, different stuff like that. So we were almost MMA before MMA, but we learned just students of the game, and then incorporating that into the pro wrestling thing. Back to your first question, in the Olympic, yes, I was alive. I was probably 5. The reason why we moved from El Paso, Texas to Los Angeles was because my father went to go wrestle for Mike LaBelle at the Olympic Auditorium. And Mike liked him. He needed a young, fiery Latino, bilingual baby face. And my dad fit the bill. He brought him in. He went there and was there for about 2 months and decided he moved us from El Paso, Texas for 6 months only. And we never left. That's what happened. We never left because he moved us for 6 months to try it. After 6 months, we ended up buying a house in Huntington Beach, California, Fountain Valley to be precise. And we just never left, even though we all say we're still from El Paso, because that's where the Guerreros are from. It's via Los Angeles.
You said something, Gene LaBelle. He was a brilliant promoter and businessman. But
Mike, yes.
Previous to Chavo, a lot of the Hispanic, especially a lot of the Mexican stars, could only speak Spanish, could only speak their language. And when your dad came along, he was kind of a trendsetter on that bilingual part. And that was so important because our business had been elevated now to where it was not only the visual in the ring, but now it was a verbal thing, like Piper was creating there, the verbal heat that he could get. So your dad being a bilingual guy, he was kind of a pioneer at that, kind of set the tone for the elevation of the bilingual Hispanic competitors.
Absolutely correct. You had guys like Mil Mascaras before who were already stars in their own right. And Mil Mascaras, but was not bilingual. So it was hard for him to get behind the mic. And a lot of this business is talking on that mic to get people in those seats. My dad was pioneer in Los Angeles. You got guys like Rocky Romero, you got Jose Lothario in the Texas area. My grandfather did it also. He was bilingual and went from Mexico City and went to like Amarillo and different places, but definitely before his time. They weren't ready for that, but yes.
Was your grandfather running the territory there in El Paso?
Yes, that was his part. That's why we settled in El Paso, because it was such a border town. He was able to have, he was the first promoter to have over the border also. He had a promotion in El Paso, but also they went into Juarez, Mexico also.
So he probably had competition coming up from Monterrey from the Mexican promoter, right?
Absolutely.
They probably both ran the border towns on Mexico, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Back then it was territories, and sometimes you respected your boundaries and sometimes you didn't. But yes, they had definitely their rivalries and their competition. My grandfather, because he was in El Paso, would use a lot of like the world-class boys, like the Von Erichs would come through and, a lot of times like that. So he would build his promotion around that stuff.
Chavo, I was really fortunate. I got to work for your grandfather, as I mentioned earlier. And I having those shows and working those shows was a true experience because the shows would start really early, and then you know, it's border town. So at the beginning, a lot of the preliminary matches, he'd probably have a dozen preliminary matches with a lot of Mexican guys that come over the border to kind of see the show and a gringo kind of style of working. So you'd set through that before he'd bring the main card on. The main card was racially mixed, of course, and but man, what a festival type atmosphere that old arena there.
Yeah, they used to do the bull ring also in Juarez, Mexico, and I mean it was he had a great little promotion going there. But in El Paso, everybody went through that. I mean, he was, you know, Pat Patterson went through there, and Pat. I even talked to Pat before he passed away and was telling me about it. He said, you know, they brought me in to wrestle, you know, your dad, and he goes, no, I want to wrestle the old man. And my grandfather was like, I'm not wrestling anymore. I'm just promoting. And Pat convinced him, get back in the ring. I want to wrestle you. So they did a great angle, and, you know, Pat was so good at what he did. And, you know, they sold the place out. And a funny story, one time I was in WCW when I first broke in, and my, the talent relations was JJ Dillon. So JJ Dillon had gotten mad at me for some reason. You know, of course I did something. I don't know what I did. And he got mad at me. And I told my dad, I was like, oh, man. He's like, what's wrong? I said, oh, man, you know, JJ got mad at me. He's like, and my dad said, he's like, fuck JJ. You tell him, you remember when he went and wrestled for Grandpa and got locked up. He went across the border to go party in Juarez and got locked up in the Mexican jail, and Grandpa bailed him out and got him across the border. Tell him that. And I was like, maybe not.
That's great. That's great. I was down there one time with Kerry Von Erich, and we'd gone across the border. We're in Laredo, went over to Nuevo Laredo. And some guy, you know, long before cell cameras, some guy was taking a picture, and all the guys were posing. And I said, "Who is this guy?" They go, "Oh, it's okay. He's with National Enquirer." Get out! Literally, me and Kerry went and jumped out a window and came down a fire escape and.
Yeah. Well, there was no cell phones back then, but there was a National Enquirer, and they would love to see you guys down there.
Yeah, there was. And all the guys were posing. I go, "What are you guys doing? Are you insane?"
Terry and I got asked to leave the border town there one night. If you can imagine me and Terry Funk and Juarez together, we were asked to leave. And they were very kind to us. They asked us to leave, or they told us we were going to jail. So I kind of elbowed. Terry didn't want to leave, of course. And Terry, we got to go. As soon as we got across the border in El Paso, USA, the border cops were waiting there for us. And guy, right there is your hotel. If we see that car missing from that hotel parking lot, we'll come and arrest you and put you in jail.
Oh yeah. I just talked to gorgeous Jimmy Garvin recently.
Wow.
And he was telling me a story about how he learned not to drink with Chris Adams, with gentleman Chris Adams. And he said, you know, Chris Adams was such the nicest guy, and I love Chris Adams. But if he drank, he was not as nice. He was a mean guy, and he has other stories. He said, well, we went to Juarez, Mexico. We were wrestling in El Paso. We went to Juarez, and we're hanging out there and just drinking. And, you know, Jimmy Garvin's such a nice guy. And he's so nice. And, you know, of course, they start drinking a little bit, and Chris Adams starts getting drunk and starts berating some of the Mexican people, and they want to fight, and he's ready to fight them all, and they're like, Jimmy Garvin's like, let's gotta get out of here. So they did something to where they're able to run out. They ran out of the bar, and people, they were shooting at him, shooting at him. They ran. And Jimmy Garvin lost Chris Adams. He's like, they lost him. He ran across the border. He was scared shitless. Went across the border. Sure enough, about, you know, an hour later, Chris comes in, and he's kind of beat up a little bit, and he gets in there, and they fall asleep. And in the morning, Chris Adams goes, what happened last night? and Jimmy's like, you don't remember? He's like, I have no clue. How did I get beat up? He had no clue what happened. And Jimmy Garvin was like, we were shooting shot at. They were shooting at us in Morris. And he's like, that's how he learned not to drink with gentleman Chris Adams.
So did your dad run? What towns did he run? He ran both sides of the border. So he ran El Paso, Juarez, Laredo, Nuevo Laredo, and Matamoros, and all those.
Well, I know it was Juarez a lot, and there was a lot of arenas in Juarez. There was, you know, the Bull Ring. There was the Palacio. There was, you know, little smaller ones around there, so he could run many different shows as opposed to just the Coliseum in in El Paso. So he mainly focused there in those cities. That was enough for him. He wouldn't go down to Matamoros and that kind of those places, Laredo.
Yeah. Your dad, I laughed because he was such a big help to me and to Eddie. And he came up with, he and I don't know if he or Eddie came up with the idea of giving your grandmother a heart attack on Mother's Day weekend in El Paso while she was honoring your grandfather, Guerrero.
Brother, that made the heat that you got from that. Oh my God. And it was a house show and they videoed it. Oh my God, what?
Yeah, they had to give me a police escort out of El Paso, and they made me drive all the way to Odessa. They said, if you stay in town, we can't guarantee somebody won't kill you. So,
they wanted to kill you, and they wanted to kill you.
Yeah, they did. It was pretty hairy.
Were you in town at that event, Chavo?
I was there, and I remember because
what
my
was
dad.
The Guerrero reaction? I mean, you guys been in business forever, know the business is what it is, but still, that's your grandmother out there.
It was my dad's idea. My dad wanted to do it. He wanted my grandma to take a bump.
He did.
Well, he probably got it off a pipe.
And Eddie was like going,
a donkey.
Yeah, Eddie was going, she's 80 years old. What do you mean she's taking a bump? Not take a bump. You could do a heart attack. And John played it off perfect, where he didn't touch her, but and she had the heart attack. And I remember watching it with Vince, and Vince was like, because my grandmother, she was part of the wrestling business because that was our business. So she used to take ticket sales and work concessions, and she knew all the, count the money and pay the wrestlers and stuff back in the day. So of course, our promotion had been long gone, but when she even got into the ring, I remember Vince going, "Oh my, she didn't even know how to get in the ring correctly. This is amazing." In Vince's voice. And man, that was what I was watching. I think because me and Eddie had already split, and I was already doing the cruiserweight thing, and I was the heel, and Eddie was running with Big John, and man, it was such heat. They just played it off so well. That whole angle. That whole your guys' marriage was so good. It was so good. I mean, you did so many different things. It was great.
It's amazing. None of that stuff could be done nowadays. And we got out there a lot of heat. We got a lot of side heat even back in those days. But man, now we'd be taken off the TV and showed to them doors nowadays.
But it was what I think, and I hate to compare because every generation compared, and it just, the reason I think it's changed is because, I mean, you guys, God, man, you guys were working together, but you guys would beat the crap out of each other every freaking night. You were given that when you laid that clothesline in, so I think Stan Hansen was going, "Oh shit!"
What we did with the grandmother, Eddie's mom, was I put my hand on her shoulder, but that allowed her to grab my hand and help herself down. So it looked like I was pushing her down, but she hadn't. That was her way of not having to take a bump. And I'm 3 feet from her, an arm length, and I'm thinking this woman has just had a heart attack. I'm like, is there a Guerrero that can't work? It was unbelievable. Vicky and the kids were screaming at ringside. Eddie's in the ring. The place is dead silent. And Eddie goes, "You better get the fuck out of here, SA. They're going to kill you." And they had extra state troopers around the ring to get me.
Yeah, and that was at the Coliseum. It wasn't at the Don Haskins Arena at UTEP. It was at the old Coliseum that we used to run it. Man, bro, it was amazing. It was just the electricity in there that I can't explain it, man. It's very hard to do. It's just magic. You guys know when that. It's just.
And after that, we were in the Southwest a bunch. Huge Hispanic crowds. I had to have protection. We had guys jumping in the ring. It was unbelievable. We went from not knowing if we could sell at the Staples Center to setting an attendance record at the Staples Center after after the video aired. That's right.
That's right, man. And I always remember you saying too, like, "Hey, there would be no JBL without Eddie Guerrero," and that was man.
100%. I was in the back when your dad pitched the idea to me. So this is awesome. So just like two typical brothers. So Chavo Senior is pitching the idea, and Eddie's there listening. And Chavo, and Eddie, you could tell, Chavo was wanting their mom to take a bump.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Eddie's going, "Chavo, she's a 74-year-old lady, or however old she was. She's not taking a bump." And Chavo now knows he's got him, And Eddie knows Chavo's working him up, but they're brothers. It doesn't matter. Eddie's still getting worked up. So it's finally Chavo goes, okay, how about John just hits her with a little lariat?
A little lariat.
A little lariat.
Eddie goes, no, Chavo. He goes, okay, Eddie. He goes, how about big boot and mom gets a little color? and now I think Eddie and Chavo are going to fight, and I'm the only one in the dressing room with them. And I'm like, guys, please. It's a wonderful idea. I really don't want to see a brother fight right now.
I don't think a little lariat is even in your repertoire.
No.
It was so good when he said, and then mom gets a little color. And Eddie gets so mad. And the good part was Eddie knew your dad was working him up, and he still got mad. They're brothers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's you. My dad knew how to push his buttons, man. My dad he knew how to push all of our buttons.
Chavo, we've jumped all over the place here. Let's go to the beginning. You know, when you were trained, when you got up, what age were you when you always knew that this was the business for you? I would assume, but when and which one of the girls actually was in the ring with you trying to teach you?
Yeah, you know, so I of course, our business, it's not like now to where you get fame and fortune and stuff. Just the way we paid bills and kept food on the table was through wrestling. That was our business. Whether you owned the bodega on the corner and the children followed in the footsteps, or they were law enforcement, or they were military family, we were a wrestling family, and that's just how we paid the bills. They weren't rich. They just were just mother's house, and that's just what it was. So wrestling was everything. We had a wrestling ring in our backyard. Our lives revolved around wrestling. So I always wanted to be a wrestler. I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. So we were always in the ring, always playing in the ring. I could always do all the moves, but you don't know why you were doing them. I could, doing head scissors and backflips off the top rope. I did all that. That was just fun. We were playing as 10-year-olds doing that. But learning how to work, everybody had a hand in it. They did. My uncle Mondo really did. He took a lot of time in California to take me. He had a wrestling school at the time, and would take me out to the ring and really, just take a lot of time with me. Then when I was about 24, I had made my debut at 23, but really when I was about close to 25, I was like, that's it. I got to do this now or it's not going to happen. So I wanted to do when I was 18, and my dad's like, first of all, they're going to kill you for all the stuff that we've done. You're not ready yet. So like,
he left a trail.
They can't beat us, but they're going to beat you up.
Your dad, who I love, realized that you were going to suffer for all of his ribs.
Absolutely. Oh no, absolutely, for sure. And I remember at 18, my dad was talking to Billy Robinson when he was doing UWF in Japan, and he was like, hey, maybe we should send him over there. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. And then I saw the style. I was like, oh no, oh no. So and it was just like, we didn't know when the right time was. Then I started getting, really hitting the gym hard and really training and starting to be able to handle myself a little bit more. And at 23, I made my debut in the Olympic Auditorium, really did. And then, you wrestled, 10, 15 times here and there. Then I left everything. I was a bartender in California. I quit and moved in with Eddie in El Paso. And when I did that, just to train for us, I didn't know what was going to happen. With just no guarantees, just to go there and train. And I would wrestle across the border in Juarez a lot. And Eddie had a big hand being in the ring with me then. My Uncle Hector, if he was around, he definitely would. My dad, here and there, he did at times, and at times he didn't. He was busy doing his thing. And then Manny Fernandez, in fact, the old Manny, Raging Bull, got in the ring with me a whole bunch of times. And so it kind of had a little bit of everybody's influence. And then 10 months later, I was in WCW. So kind of weird, huh? Yeah.
Who were you
lucky. I got
working
lucky.
Who were you working for in Mexico?
Everybody, all just independent promotions, all independent promotions. So I'd wrestle eight or 10 different places. Sometimes I wrestled 2 or 3 times in a night.
Right.
And sometimes it was in front of, 10 people, 15 people. At one time I remember wrestling Eddie. I had some good advice. You always think you're better than you actually are. And I think I was wrestling in front of, it was 20 people there or whatever. And I was kind of pissed off and just get done. And he looks at me because he went to see me that night and he goes, first of all, who the fuck do you think you are? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, just get in the ring. And I don't care if in front of 5 people or in front of 5,000 people. He goes, get in the ring and you wrestle, get that mat time. He goes, it's harder to wrestle in front of 5 people than it is 5,000 people. So that's when you even get better. So go wrestle in front of 10 people. That's when you perfect your craft. And so I was like, just get that mat time. So I would try to wrestle as much as I can. And really, I mean, when I got a tryout at WCW, because Eddie was there and they were really hiring a lot of cruiserweights at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I was lucky enough to work with Steve Regal. Regal asked to work with me. We worked a dark match. He made me look much better than I was. Eric Bischoff hired me right there, and I learned on the job, really.
It's the thing about wrestling. It's like anything. It's up to musicians, the same thing. If you can wrestle in front of 50 people, 5,000 is easy.
I tell people that all the time. If I do a seminar, if I'm talking to people, I tell them, wrestling at WrestleMania, that's a piece of cake. Once you get over the fear of being in front of 60, 80,000 people, it's a piece of cake because anything you do, they pop on it. That's nothing. I go, you want to be good at your craft? You go wrestle in front of 50 people. That's when you get good. And you can get them going. You can get them to stand up. That's when you know you're doing well.
We had Freddie Prinze Jr. on here, and he was talking about your dad was friends with his dad. Was that from Los Angeles? I guess that's because that's where Mondo got into Hollywood. And was that because your dad was such a big baby face there at the Coliseum?
Yeah, they were. I mean, it was Hollywood back then. NWA Hollywood it was called, and because of the boxing, the roller derby, and the wrestling, a lot of stars would come watch the matches. And people like superstar Billy Graham was over there. And he was friends with Arnold, and they'd go work all the time. And Arnold was already a Mr. Olympia, and he was going, how come everybody recognizes, in his Arnold voice, Billy, how come everybody recognizes you and no one knows who I am? It's because of wrestling. Wrestling was that popular, So my dad knew all the stars in that area, Burt Reynolds and one time. So they went to go eat at, I think it was a Brown Derby over there in Hollywood, and he went with Mike LaBelle to go eat the Brown Derby, and they sat down, and Frank Sinatra's behind my dad, and my dad's like, holy shit, that's Frank Sinatra, and Mike LaBelle goes, oh, you want to meet him? Hey Frank, hey Mike, how you doing? Hey, this is Chavo Guerrero. He's our new up and coming wrestler. Hey, nice to meet you, sir. I mean, it was like that. That's the way it was. There was no cell phone cameras. Everybody would go out all the time and hang out.
That's right. You don't get worried about getting stooged.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. But that in LA, that culture, no one really cares. Everybody's in that entertainment business somehow. They're either musicians at the Whiskey A Go-Go, or they were wrestlers back then or they're boxers, or they're in Hollywood, and so they all kind of ran together. And Jerry, you know the 80s, you guys were running really hard.
Really hard, yeah. Really hard.
So yeah, they were doing that, and it was Hollywood.
Yeah, it's just a different time, as Jerry will attest.
I have a slight memory lapse. It's called the 80s.
Exactly. Do you have a book out, Jerry? Because if you don't, you need to write a book with all the stuff.
No, I'm Layfield getting my book out of me during these podcasts.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Please get that book out. And I remember, this is so my family should talk about your family. And my dad remember when he was wrestling at University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP. And he was an amateur wrestler there. He would study your brother had never been taken down ever, in an amateur wrestling match. So they would study and study and study. So they would tell me stories about, and then when they would work together and work with you and talking about the Orlando Gold days. And
one thing about it, Chavo, the old man always wanted to try me and Jack. It didn't matter which one. He just wanted to try us for some reason. Yeah. That's a Guerrero family, brother.
I think it's like Kurt Angle. You get in the ring with Kurt Angle. You just want to see where you're at. You know, I remember one time we were, Eddie and I were tagging and we were wrestling Benoit and Angle. And, Kurt knew where you were going before you went. That's how he was. He's above me on everybody. Before you knew it. One time I took him down. Of course, he was in and out in 2 seconds. But he told me, he goes, hey, you got me. And I was like, yeah, that was enough for me. I go, that was enough for me. I don't care if he would, of course, would have wiped me up off the ground. I'm sure he did. But it was like, oh man, I got him. I got him one time.
Yeah, but you forgot about that 2 seconds after you got him. What happened?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
No, I got him. Yeah.
I was smiling the whole time being stretched. I was smiling, going, yes.
And the more the old man drank, the more he wanted to challenge us. For
absolutely. Let's see what
we were in Japan, and Don Jardine, I think it was Jardine, one of the really big guys like Jardine, had to pull the old man and I apart like for just about every night on the bus, because it's just out of nothing, just Oklahoma sucks or Texas sucks, And then we get going and we get pulled apart for some reason.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're blaming Chavo Sr. for drinking and wanting to wrestle? You.
Well, that's where I learned it from, John, on a bus.
Hey,
I can't tell you how many times Jerry'd look at me about half cross-eyed and go, Texas pussy. I go, oh my goodness, this is not going to end well.
And that's all it took, too, man.
Hey, my dad was, especially for All Japan, he was one of the only gaijins. It was him, Bruiser Brody, and Stan Hansen are always the 3 gaijins that were on, the foreigners that were on every tour. So, he learned how to be a rebel from the best, so he became, even more of an asshole. But so one time, and I don't know which organization it was for, Nick Bockwinkel was there, and Nick Bockwinkel always had the very first seat on the bus. The very first seat as soon as you got in was Nick Bockwinkel's seat. So, the tour had been going on. He always sat there and everybody knew that's the AWA champion, and that's Nick Bockwinkel. That's his seat. Well, sure enough, my dad gets on early one day and sits in that seat. And as Nick walks up, he looks at my dad very, very Nick Bockwinkel way. And my dad goes, hey, you're not the champ here. Get in the back.
And Nick probably didn't challenge him either.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, geez.
I was sitting by Eddie when he got in a fight with Kurt Angle.
I love it.
He comes out of the ring, everybody knows the story, and he goes to leg dive Kurt Angle and they get into a fight. And so I'm in the dressing room, I'm dressing by Eddie, and they come down the hall and it's a fight. You can just hear what fight's going on. And I realized it's Eddie and Kurt are in a fight. So finally, John Laurinaitis closes the door, and Eddie's just on this side of the dressing room with me. I don't think anybody else is in there, and then Kurt's on the other side, and they're getting Kurt out of there. Eddie comes and sits down there. He's just staring at the door, just mad, and I'm sitting there looking at him, and I said, "Why would you leg dive a gold medalist?" And he goes, "'Cause I'm stupid."
I think it was more.
It was great, but later I told him, I said, "Eddie, punch a gold medalist. Don't wrestle him."
I think it was like, went more like this. Hey, Eddie, you know that Kurt's an Olympic gold medalist, right? Well, why would you try to leg dive him?
Exactly. It was so good.
Well, one time, Eddie wrestled Brock Lesnar, and Brock was super green, and super strong, and God, crazy. And Brock didn't know his own strength, and kind of manhandled Eddie a little bit. Eddie was pissed, and he was waiting in that locker room, and he cleared the locker room out and goes, "Brock, let me talk to you right now." And they went and they closed the door, and I'm like, oh shit, am I gonna have to jump into and help Eddie after he's getting killed? Could you pick somebody else, please? Sure enough, they got into a little argument, and then squashed it and all good, and Eddie of course apologized. I'm sorry, whatever. But yeah, I remember that was one time Eddie almost got into a Booker T if they were in the dressing room, and Booker is no slouch. Booker's a man, you guys know. And Eddie's in his underwear, and they're talking about something. Well, I could be all you. I'll beat you. And they started getting heated. people were looking like, oh, at first it was a joke, and then it kind of got into it. And I was like, oh. So I started kind of like, man, Booker's gonna kill him. So I started like easing my way around, kind of Booker to the other side, going, if he jumps in, I gotta jump in. I can't let Eddie just get beat. I gotta jump in. And I'm looking, where's Stevie at? Where's Stevie at? You know, because Stevie, I don't think he's in the ring. Like, oh, great. And nothing ever happened. It was done. They squashed really fast, never touched each other. And Booker goes, hey, Chavo, this is like a few days later. I go, yeah, he goes, were you going to jump in? I said, what do you expect me to do, man?
That's great.
4'4",
great.
5'8". What do you expect? I go, yeah, I had to.
But Chavo, wait a minute now. I was in the dressing room when you almost got in a fight with Big Show.
Yes.
And you're giving up like 250, 300 pounds at the time, because the show was huge at the time.
Oh, yeah, more than that. He was fat as fuck. Yeah. Oh, I was giving up more than that.
Show was at his absolute biggest, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. You know, I'm like, we got to break this up. Chavo's giving up 250, 300 pounds. I have no idea what it was over. I just remember you guys all got to this big.
You know, and we Show and I laugh about that now. We actually laugh about it, and I'm like, hey man, thanks for not eating me. You know, but he.
I told him the same thing several times.
Yeah, I've seen you dig at him a couple of times. He was being Show, and he was doing, I don't know what it was, and I was being me, and I got ornery at him. And of course, I know my limitations. I didn't say the first F you, and I didn't stand up first, but I wasn't going to let him do it either. So I mean, we had the whole locker room. I had Bob Holly holding him back. I had Billy Gunn holding me back. We were trying to get at each other. And I wanted to get at him, but I was scared to hit him. I felt this is the truth. There was 8 people in between us. I felt his strength through everybody, that if, let's say I would have hit him and got him really mad, he would have gone through us all. That's what I felt.
Yeah. He's a true giant.
I felt that.
One time backstage, he told me, he goes, I'm going to pick you up over my head. You know, and I'm 6'6". It's not that he can't lift, you know, at the time, 300 pounds. I said, you know, show him unwieldy. How are you going to do that?
Right.
Literally backstage, he picked me up over his head. He just picked me up. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Oh, yeah. This man is a giant.
He's a legit giant, legit. And I was in the ring one time.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, thank God. Well, you weren't always a nice guy. Well, I remember in Japan one time, and you were egging him, and you were getting him going, and I don't know if you were calling him Shrek or what you were calling him.
I would. He finally started getting me back. I'd call him Shrek, and he'd go, "Come along, donkey."
Yeah. Well, you had him so mad that he was at catering, and I think you had a couple drinks, and he got so mad that I hear him and slams the door and walks out, and I was like, bro, that's a Big Show, and you're like, I don't care. You were ready. I was like, oh man.
You know, the bottom line is, it's a good thing Big Show was so much smarter than Eddie and John, or we would have been minus 2 superstars.
Right. Every time I see Show, I tell him now, thank you for not eating. I appreciate it.
I'm the same way. I look at him and I'm like, bro, thank you, brother. Like, I don't know what got into me, but he was like, hey man, you know, you get a pass. I was like, okay.
I used to tell him all the time, I said, Show, now if you eat me, don't shit me out, because my wife will eat me. He would laugh. You know, I'd get him to the point where I think he's going to kill me. Then finally he would just laugh.
Well, when you guys did the Shrek thing in Europe with him, and you had the, well, how did that all start? Because you were.
I was in the ring with Kurt Angle, and
you were calling him Shrek or something first. You're doing something on Shrek, and then somebody had like a sign, like a picture of Shrek, and you asked him, "Hey, will you sign this?" or something like that, and you got pissed off at that, and then go on. Yes.
Wait, you asked him to sign a picture of Shrek?
No. A fan had a picture of Shrek, and we had him take it to Show.
Wait a minute, that was Meredith's picture, wasn't it?
That's right. My wife Meredith had a picture of Shrek. She loves Shrek, so we gave it to a fan and said, "Hey, go ask Show to sign." It was several of us. I won't say who all.
Everybody's right. You are a bully, Layfield. Yes. Bully at a 7'5", 500-pound giant.
So Show was at the bar, and everybody's bothering him. You know, he's a giant. You know, he can't hide anywhere. Finally, he takes the thing, goes, "All right, I'll sign it," and he grabs it, and it's a picture of Shrek. And he looks at it, and he looks around, and he sees who all is there. It's, and finally, and you see him start laughing. And thank goodness he found that funny. Then we're in the ring. It's me and Kurt Angle waiting to wrestle Show, and Show's coming out. All of a sudden, halfway down, it says, "Hey, now you're an all-star." Shrek theme music.
Yes. Well, it is his music first. I went, whoa, like I'm the big, well, hey, now I'm a rock star. You never saw somebody run so fast that ring. He ran the ring. John bailed out, and Kurt was left in there, like, what's going on? What's going on? Kurt had no idea. And you were pointing at Kurt. It's Kurt. It's Kurt. Kurt's like,
I did. Kurt asked me, he goes, "What is that?" I go, "It's Shrek's theme music." He goes, "Oh my God, he's going to kill us." I go, "Don't worry. I'll take responsibility." So as soon as Show gets the ring, I said, "I swear to you, Kurt did it. I had nothing to do with it." And I jumped out of the ring, and Kurt's just standing there. Show is so mad. He chased me around. I'm going, if he catches me, he's going to kill me.
I'll kill you. Okay. And that's what, remember when he left for a while and tried to do some boxing and stuff, and kind of left for a while. And well, when he came back, it was a year and a half later, I asked him, I go, "What, bro, you're doing all right. Why did you come back?" And he goes, "To be honest, you guys are the only ones that treat me like an actual human being." He goes, "Everywhere else in the world, I can do anything I want because I'm so big that I can get away with anything. You guys are the only ones that don't let me get away with anything." And I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you're the only ones that make fun of me and joke with me and poke me and stuff." He goes, "I missed it."
Wow.
It's true.
Show's a wonderful man.
I love him.
He's a wonderful guy.
Thank God.
Thank God. Or else we would all be dead.
Oh my goodness.
I was sitting on an airplane one time. This big guy, I knew, basketball player, he's like 6'6" or something, just big slim guy, looked like an athlete. We started talking. We're leaving Atlanta going to LA. And it turns out the guy was that Cooper guy that played for the Lakers out there.
Yeah, Michael Cooper.
Yeah, with Michael Cooper. But him and Show played on the same college team, Wichita Shockers together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when we introduced each other, he said, "You're a wrestler." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I know somebody." I said, "Where'd you play college basketball for?" He said, "Wichita State." He said, "I know who you know." He said, "Paul." He said, "That's the laziest, slowest ass white man I ever met in my life. But man, he thinks he's the biggest lover boy that ever crossed the path." I said,
Yep.
You know Show. And he proceeded to tell me some stories about Paul and Wichita State, man. And most of them resolved around the cafeteria meeting.
Well, when Show first came into WCW, I mean, he was a specimen, man. He was a big, in shape. I mean, he was lean before he got really, really big. Man, he was an athlete, man. He was doing tip ups and could drop kick off the top rope. He could do a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, he looks great now, and he's still probably 350, 400.
He dropped a lot of weight. He looks great.
An incredible athlete.
He really is. Absolutely.
The only time that Eddie and I never got into a fight, the only time Eddie and I actually had a disagreement was in the ring. We had a guy jumped in the ring to come after me. I think we're in San Bernardino. So the guy's trying to get to me after the video aired. And Eddie gets so mad. He goes, "That guy just screwed up our match. I'm going to kill him." "Eddie, I'm the heel. Let me take care of this guy." And Eddie goes after him, and I double waist lock Eddie, and I hold on to him. Eddie was wanting to fight the guy. And finally, little Hebner, Brian Hebner, just punched the guy in the face as he's coming. He really just knocks him out of the ring. But Eddie was so mad, he still wanted to go after him. I go, "Eddie, I'm the heel. They're coming after me." It kind of kills all the heat if you beat up the fan.
Hey, that happened to us we were in Canada somewhere. I don't know, it was in Edmonton or one of those towns. And me and Eddie were wrestling the Bashams. So we're wrestling the Bashams and kind of getting close to going home. I'm taking the heat. I'm getting ready to do the hot tag. So we're letting the crowd die down a little bit before the hot tag. And all of a sudden I hear a loud noise and like a roar. And I'm going, they shouldn't be roaring right now. I don't know what's going on. Why are they? They shouldn't be roaring, And hold on a second. Let me close this door real quick, guys. Hold on.
Only on Brisco and Bradshaw you get.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
So I go and I hear them the fans coming and they should be silent. I don't know what's going on, why they're coming. And I look, I guess one of the bastards that pop Eddie off the apron and he was down selling, and then somebody had poured a beer over the rail onto Eddie's head. And when they poured on Eddie's head, Eddie was a recovering alcoholic at the time, and he was like,
Winnipeg. What is it?
Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, Winnipeg. They poured it over his head, and Eddie went from a cell and hopped up and jumped in the crowd and grabbed the guy, and they were going at him. The guy was running, and sure enough, like they broke it up, and the security grabbed the guy and arrested him. Eddie comes in, and I'm like, what's going on? The match stopped. The match totally stopped. Eddie comes in the ring, and he grabs the microphone, and he goes, I apologize. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and this gentleman, he put a beer on me, and it was a direct insult. I take sobriety seriously, and I'm a Christian that shouldn't have done it like that, shouldn't react like that. And really, everybody started listening. Like, I'm thinking, how are we going to get the match back? I'm like, how are we going to, what should we do? And Eddie's doing it. And as soon as we got done, he gets the mic, and he looks at the Bastards and goes, jump us. And sure enough, Bastions jumped us right back there. Boom! But people started booing. We went right into the finish, right into the comeback, right into the finish. It was gold. It was
awesome.
It was awesome. We got the fans booed the hell out of him because it was a great moment. It was a feel-good moment. The way Eddie did it was apologizing, and the Bastions got it. It was great. Couldn't have ruined it.
Let me tell you a backstory that you're not aware of for that night. So Jack Lanza was the agent, as he always was. Bob Holliday was up there. Jack had something he wanted to go do. And so he asked me, he goes, John, would you watch the show? And so, just fill Jack's role at the curtain. So I'm sitting there now, I'm a heel. I can't do anything. And I see Eddie get into the fight after the guy poured the beer on me. Eddie jumped, as you say, I'm sitting there watching the whole thing in shock because I am now temporarily in charge of the show.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So I'm sitting there watching going, oh my God, what do I do? I can't go out. Lanza can go out and help him because, he's an agent and doesn't, I'm a heel. If I go out, so what's going to happen? So I'm sitting there watching going, oh, geez. And finally got separated. Eddie cut the promo, did the thing. Another match goes on. Lanza comes back and he says, how'd the show go? I go, oh, fine.
Lanza would have been grabbing his tie. Go home. Go home.
Yeah. The one show I get temporarily put in charge of.
We're great. No problem. Oh, good.
And we could go back there for the next year and a half.
Eddie's an entire section of fans.
Good times.
Chavo, so you were down in WCW, man, and you're working down there. And how did the big jump to WWE come on?
We were there when you guys did the buyout. We didn't know at the time WCW went from a Turner owned product to a Time Warner product, then to an AOL product. So it kept changing. And that's when they were like, if he wouldn't Turner would have, he loved wrestling and loved the sports. Well, to AOL, we were just a number and our numbers weren't adding up. So they were like, we got to get rid of these guys. So that's when, Fusient Group we were thinking about buying us, and no one really knew what was going on and what was going to happen with that WCW with us. We had no clue. I was still young in the business. I felt, what doesn't really matter what happens. I'll be all out of my feet is what I felt very naively. But, and then we got to Panama City, and when we got to Panama City and we saw you there, and we saw, I think Sarge was there and all the WWE agents, WWF agents at the time. And we're like, we got bought. Are you kidding me? Wow. I was there. And my contract was one of the 19 that were picked up out of all those people and went to WWF at the time. That's how I made the jump.
Did you guys have a feeling, because the rumors were going, Eric Bischoff had put together a group was going to buy WCW and a couple other groups. Luger told us the story how he kind of knew that that WCW had no future with AOL, because every year they take certain talent out to either Vegas or New York where they're premiering all the shows.
Right.
They took Luger out there as part of TBS, and he's watching, seeing the rundown of all the shows, and he told us they'll run down all these shows. He said, I'm looking for WCW, and there's no WCW advertised. So I'm thinking in the back of my mind, hey, this is the end. They don't want us anymore.
Right.
I guess that's when Bischoff was putting together a quick device, and all of a sudden you guys show up in Panama City, and they're the evil guys are.
We loved it. I was excited, man. I was really, really excited to have the opportunity at least to be able to go to WWF, because we knew, we were WCW, and we know at one point they were beating WWF in the ratings, but we knew where you, if you really were making in this business, where you went, and it was New York. And I was really excited to be able to maybe have the chance to go there. Eddie was already there, and Dean and Chris and the Radicals had jumped over there. So man, it was new territory, and to work for Vince McMahon, I was so happy, so ready to do it. I remember, hey, I don't know if you remember this, Jerry. So, if we come in, where I think before we even doing maybe some of the invasion angle, I'm not sure, but it was the match that was the opening right before the pay-per-view. So it was like a 5-8 minute match that was like a televised match, but it was for the pay-per-view. And then you would buy the pay-per-view right there. It was like the prelim basically. And then you buy the pay-per-view right there. Well, I was wrestling Scotty 2 Hottie. And at the time, we didn't know how to really call it in the ring. We had a finish mapped out, how we wanted to map the finish out and stuff. So we had a finish mapped out, and we were going, and they're saying, go home. You guys got to go home. And you're saying, you're working time. Tell them to go home. Tell them to go home. We got to go home. And sure, I'm like, all right, well, we'll get there. And sure enough, I think we did the finish like 5 seconds before we were going dark or whatever it was. And we made the time, but it was, you guys were pissed. I got in the back, and you called me over, and you sat me down. You said, hey, I love your family, but if you can't hold your time, you're not going to be here very long. And I was like, okay. I remember that, told you, he sat me down and stuff like, all right. I was like, oh, I better learn how to call this in the ring.
Jerry, you're such a mean guy.
I'm a bully, man. I learned it from
you.
You were right straight to the point, but you weren't a jerk about it. But you were like, hey, that's not going to fly here. I don't know how you guys did it over here, but this is what we do it here. So I was like, oh, okay.
Jerry has such a nice way about it. About 6 months after I got here, I put on some weight, traveling around. Jerry comes to me and goes, you're fat. Vince noticed, lose weight. Okay. So I did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I see you found it.
That was a heck of a night there that night, that whole process there, and I've been, being a talent, you could relate to what was going on the other side. But
Yeah.
on the inside too, you're just so happy because we got our asses kicked so hard and so long,
Right.
Finally that perseverance had paid off, man. So it was a thrill that night, but yet, we could understand what what you guys were going through.
We wanted to show you what we could do, get in the ring and do stuff. And, you guys already knew what we could do, if we could work or not, so we just, and I was wrestling Scotty for the first time. And it was WCW guy versus WWE, WWF guy. And man, we're having fun, but,
we were there for one reason, to make sure Shane McMahon had 20 minutes when he went in the ring there.
Right. Yeah.
That was don't come back unless you got 20 minutes.
Yeah. Right. I remember that night. That was a pretty good night, man. It's historic, and there's been DVDs written about it, stories written about it, but man, what a historic night to be able to be there. And I wrestled on that show. On that show, I wrestled Shane Helms, who wrestled for the Cruiserweight Championship on that show. So,
well, Bruce approved the card that night. So if you ever see Bruce, you gotta think of Bruce.
I will, absolutely. I just talked to him recently, or I texted him recently, and I was just, I had just told him, hey man, I know you're in the eye of the hurricane right now.
Oh really?
Keep your head up, brother. And he was like, thanks, brother.
He loves that, though. He loves being in that hurricane, man.
Yeah.
He does. Yeah, he actually does. he loves griping about being in the eye of the hurricane too.
Does he ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I miss Brucey. You listen, Brucey, we love you, brother.
He doesn't watch his own podcast, much less ours. Yeah, we love Bruce. It's funny how, a guy is like Cena, half the crowd was chanting Cena sucks. Now they all love him, because he's been around so long, people realize how great he is.
Absolutely.
Bruce was on the outside. They're going, well, if Bruce would just get in there, things would be better. Then he gets in there and go, oh, Bruce sucks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know how it goes.
Guys,
Yeah.
never had it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So when did Kerwin White come up?
Wow, that's it's funny how many people remember and how many people. I'll do Comic-Con signings and they'll have me sign Kerwin White. Like there's a lot. Anytime I post on Instagram, I'll post a golf day out there golf like you do. I'll get 50 Kerwin White posts, 50 comments saying talk about Kerwin White. Well, that happened. So I don't know how it happened backstage. In the creative room, but the way it happened to me is that I got off a tour of Japan. We went right to Raw, straight from Japan. And as soon as I got in there, I see Vince and he looks at me and goes, well, hello, Kerwin. And Kerwin was our director.
Our director, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Kerwin Surface.
Yes. Great guy. Loved him to death. He was awesome. So I was Kerwin. And I went, okay. What is this about? And he goes, well, tonight you are denouncing your Hispanic history and you are becoming a white guy. Voice, and I was like, all right, so what do I do with this? I mean, I've told this story before. I'm like, what do I do with this? Do I, you make that split decision. It's like you either say no and you look in some place to have other place to have a job, or you say, all right, let's do this. So I'm like, all right, how do you want to, all right, what's your idea? So really, to be honest, I pitched it to Vince and I said, look, Vince, if we're going to do this, and I'm pissing everybody off, right? I'm pissing the Hispanics off because I'm not Hispanic anymore, but I'm pissing all Caucasians off because I'm dressing, all pastel colors and, I'm just making fun of them also. So I'm pissing everybody off. So if we're going to do this, I mean, I want to go full. I want to piss everybody off. I want to come out and, well, of course we couldn't do this now. Of course it's changed. Like I want to come out in a white sheet eventually. And Vince was like, oh yes, I love that. Absolutely. I mean, I was just a Mexican guy. It would be like the Dave Chappelle skit to where.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I thought of.
The Ku Klux, the Grandmaster took it off, and he was a black man. I wanted to do that, and he loved it. Of course, I think it got a little too edgy, a little too racist, and of course, when Eddie passed, I switched right back to Chavo that night. So, and that was Kerwin was done.
Right. And what a lot of people realize, a little backstory is, Vince loved making characters after certain names. You had Freddie Joe Floyd, was it Tracy Smothers, who comes in, Kerwin, who was the producer, who, by the way, Kerwin was, I think, in Wilkes-Barre, and they walked in to hire the producer. He was like a salesman or something, but he's wearing a suit. And they said, are you the producer? He goes, yeah, and took the job and ended up being a great producer.
Wow.
But apparently mistaken identity, and he wanted a job, so he got one.
I think that whole character was a spinoff on Brian Gewert's alter ego, Ben Kerwin White there. Because I think that's what Gewert wanted to be all the time was a guy like that.
Bro, you should see my wardrobe, man. When we stopped doing the Kerwin White gimmick, I had so many different green and pink sweaters and pastel colors.
Chavo, your wardrobe came from a photograph of John Layfield's closet that Gewertz took
his high
one
school
day when he was
picture.
over there. So
I had the sweater, tied around my neck.
Yeah. It was so much heat. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. I did enjoy it. And of course, being a white guy now, he had, Vince had me wrestling all minorities. So it was me wrestling. I'm a minority wrestling other minorities, but I'm saying I'm white. And it was, oh man, it would never fly today. You just could not do it. But at the time, it was fun, and I would coming out to, they did like a Frank Sinatra knockoff song, and I was coming out in the golf cart, and they got me a caddy. It was fun.
You had a caddy with one of the guys.
Yeah, his name was Nick Nemeth at the time. But
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Nick
Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, he went on to become the heavyweight and the WWE champion.
That's right, Dolph. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He was my caddy. Yeah, he was my first caddy. Yeah, Nick.
Tremendous.
Yeah. Great.
What gets me is you say, well, you can't do it today. It's insane to me that you can't. Not that it's not in bad taste. It is in bad taste, but that's why you would do it. You're a heel. But apparently
it's a rest. You're a movie character. It's like a movie. You can still do a movie about, let's say, about what being a racist or being a bigot or being a misogynist. You can do movies about it because it's not real. Well, we're just playing a character. That's the way I look at it. I'm not walking around town with a bandana on going viva la raza, viva la raza. That's Chavo Guerrero character wrestler that I'm actually playing. It may be an extension of myself, but it's not how I walk around all the time. You're not walking around with your cowboy hat and flashing money around, and maybe you are.
Yeah, he is.
but
Gary.
We're playing characters out there, so that's why I'm kind of like I just think it's maybe the culture's definitely changed, and I understand why, but at the same time it's like, guys, we're playing. This is not real. People may blur that reality, and if they do, then we're doing our jobs correctly. But it's character to me.
Chavo, let's jump over to probably one of the most tragic days in WWE history is when we got the word that Eddie passed away there in Minneapolis.
Right.
You and John were asked to do something that was probably next to impossible in most people's mind, but you guys kind of walk us through that day.
Man, that was a tough one, man. The night before, Eddie and I just happened to be on the same flights together, and I connected through Phoenix. He had moved to Phoenix at this time, and I was like, hey, what's up? We sat together and talked, and we got to the Marriott there and went to our separate rooms, and in the next morning, what happened. So when we got to the arena, of course they were like, Chavo, you do what you need to do, you go home. Well, before that, I was talking to Vince and to Shawn Michaels and to Triple H, and they're like, what do we do? Do we cancel the show? It was a super show because we were going overseas to Europe. And I was like, absolutely not. You do not cancel. Eddie would not. The show must go on. So Vince is like, he not that he listened to me, but at the same time he took what I had said and he said, all right, well, we're and made it a tribute show, which was great. I mean, it was awesome. What a great tribute it was. But they said, you can go home. I said, no, I'm wrestling tonight. I want to wrestle tonight. And John was there, and John wanted to wrestle and wanted to wrestle me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put you over in the ring. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm putting you over. And that's how it kind of went down. How do you remember it, John?
Very, very similar. I told him I wanted to wrestle Chavo because I'd been Eddie's biggest nemesis, and his biggest, opponent. And I wanted to wrestle Chavo and put Chavo over. That's the only way. I wouldn't have done anything else. Never. But that was my tribute to the Guerrero family and to Eddie. It was the whole Guerrero family, but they had all been so nice to me. Eddie was such a good friend. He's a groomsman of my wedding. Eddie and I really got along. I still think the world of Eddie. And I wanted to do that for Eddie. I wanted to do it just like Eddie would do it. The lied, cheat, and steal with the chair, with the frog splash, the whole thing.
Right. That's right. And we really didn't talk much about the match. We kind of just called most of it in there, except we would do the chair spot and the frog splash. But I remember one spot I said, hey, I don't know if I said it. I think, hey, maybe you take a boot in the corner and I'll drop kick you or something like that. And you were like, oh well, I'll tell you what, I'll take the boot. Or I was charging you. You were giving me the boot. Then you were hitting the ropes for like the lariat, but I was going to drop kick you out of the blue. And you said, "Hey man, I'm coming. Be ready. I'm coming." I said, "Yeah, okay, sure, no problem, no problem." And brother, when you gave me the boot, I turned 1 second. I turned thinking I was going to have time to set up for that drop kick and drop kick. When I turned, you were there, bro. You hit the rope so fast and you came that I just jumped. I didn't even know. I just jumped. And I mean, if you look at it, it was timed perfectly, but it was not meant to be. I didn't know because you were so fast. I just had to like squeeze and get my legs up there, and it worked out perfect. But bro, it's like I don't know how that happened, to be honest, because you were so fast, you were so there so quickly. I just I didn't know how. I just jumped
I
out.
always had to warn people about that because they're not expecting it to happen that fast from the ropes.
Yeah, you were, bro. When you said you were coming, man. It was good.
But to me, it was a wonderful honor. It was an honor working with you. It was an honor for doing that for Eddie, for the Guerrero family. It's just something that I felt was important to me, at least.
I agree. To me, it was like you said, it was an honor. It was a gift. I got a gift to wrestle that night.
Yeah.
And it was just that the crowd was magic, was electric. Maybe 2 weeks later, Mick Foley had come back, and and I didn't really know Mick too much at the time. 2005. I knew him, but I didn't really know him. He'd already been gone for a while and stuff, but he'd come back for something, and he pulled me aside and he says, "Chavo, when you went up for that frog splash and you stopped and you pointed," he goes, that moment was just amazing. And I was like, wow, coming from Mick, I was like, wow, thank you. That was really cool. Thank you, John.
No, thank you.
One of the highlights of my career, brother.
Yeah, really. Me too. It's funny because during the time with Eddie and up until Eddie passed away, I'd walk around New York and there'd be like a Hispanic crew somewhere, a group of Hispanic, whatever it was. And you'd hear them say something like, "Cabrón," something you always hear them curse me, as I'd walk around because I was Eddie Guerrero's nemesis. I was Eddie Guerrero's.
Absolutely.
And after he passed away, they found out we were friends. And now I'd walk by the same group and go, "Hey, hey!" They love me.
Yes.
They know I'm friends with Eddie.
Yeah. For sure, man. For sure. Good times, man. Good times.
Yeah, such a good dude. Eddie was so pleasant. I always say Eddie was, to me, like, say, maybe the only person I've seen close to, like Shawn Michaels around 95, 96 in that era, when he was just so athletic and just so on fire. Eddie would come out and it was like grabbing an extension of an electric wire that wasn't grounded.
Yeah.
It was electric. I talked to Eddie in the back. We had so many matches and I'd say, "What do you want to do?" And he goes, "Oh, let's just feel it out there." And right. He couldn't tell you a match in the back. And it wasn't because he wasn't smart. But he went by feel. And the stuff he would call, it was.
Well, you guys called the bull rope match in the Staples Center when Stewart was switching the title in the ring, right?
That's right. The whole thing, the whole match in the ring, even the finish. Yeah. When Pat came to us, when Pat left, I told the story before, I looked at Eddie. I said, "Is something wrong?" He goes, "I don't like it." And I said, "What do you not like?" And he said, "Any of it." And so I went to Pat and I said, "Pat," I said, "I got a problem." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Eddie doesn't like it." He said, "Which part?" I said, "Any of it." And Pat, to his credit, goes, "Guys, I'm just trying to help.
Do what you want. Call it what you want." Yes.
Yeah. He had so much respect for Eddie.
Right.
He goes, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Eddie wants to call it all in the ring." And Pat said, "This is your match. Good luck." And, he meant it. It wasn't a smart ass good luck. It was, when I came back, Pat said, "You did it." It was.
Well, you remember the juice that Eddie got that night. And I remember because I was like, "Dude, what'd you do?" And he's like, "Man, I got some scar tissue up here. I needed some serious color that night. I really did." So, he was like, whatever. I had to take him to get stitched up that night because it was so bad. We had to go to the hospital to get it stitched up. And the next night you brought over like Eddie's blade. It was a big steak knife.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a big old steak knife from Outback Steakhouse or something.
Yeah. I got this steak knife, Jerry, and I'd wrap the bottom with tape, and it was like this huge blade. I go, "Eddie, I found your blade." Yeah. He showed me the blade before. He goes, "I'm going with the business blade today." And he goes, no, it's scar tissue. I want to make sure and hit it right. He did.
Yeah. Oh yes. Bro, the color, bro, man. Wow. What a match though. But just the like you guys had it all the time. You guys had that match. You had that feeling because it was two pros. There's two pros in that ring going. And when you get that and that happens, you get it with Flair and Steamboat, and you get it with Taker and Sean. You get, but you guys were two pros in the ring, man, and it's gold.
He called
man.
a spot one time. I think it was in that match or the next match where he says, "You're gonna backdrop me on the table." We're in the ring at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what table? And so anyway, finally we end up outside the ring, and here he comes around. I go, well, I guess this is a spot. He called that on the fly. I backdrop him. He launches up in the air, lands on the table, and it's just he would think of stuff out there that it's like it's like a guy that everything slows down. They say Michael Jordan, things slow down. With Eddie, things slowed down out there. Everything became clear to him out there.
When he was on, very few were better. When he was on, as far as his mind, and he was feeling it, man. There's times that he'd be struggling for it, and he'd get hard on himself, and I'd go back and go, man, what a great match. He's like, no, it wasn't there, man. It wasn't there tonight. What are you talking about? It's an amazing match. But when he was on and he felt it, bro, there was very few were better.
Yeah, he gave me the line. He called me one morning. It was like 1:00 in the morning. He goes, I got something for you. I said, what is it? He goes, tell them my ancestors come over here in a boat, not an inner tube. I'm like, Eddie, you're going to get me killed. He goes, no, it's good stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He loved it. He loved it.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure he liked being a babyface.
well, there's that time when we have a heel and a babyface, and they're trying to outshine each other by making the other person look as good as they can. And that's what you guys did. You weren't worried about making you look good. You're about making him look good. He was worrying about selling for you, making you look good. So it's a lost art, guys. It really is. I just don't know. Guy, it's hard. I don't know who's teaching them now, or maybe they're just not getting the ring time like that anymore. But it's a lost art. Right? Do you agree with me? And
Chavo, I agree. What I think the problem is, you hit on it. It's the ring time.
Ring time.
These guys are pushed so fast and everything, and we're living such a society where you can't tell those stories like John and Eddie were able to tell in there. Take your time to build in those spots. Everything's just that damn drive-by stuff where you got to boom, get it out. So I think it's just lack of ring time and you go out for a match. I mean, even John and Eddie, when you guys were having matches building this, you have 10, 15 minutes. Now they're lucky if they get 5, 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So they're rushed so much. It's just I don't think they have the time, like you said.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And you guys, I mean, and anybody listening, definitely not knocking anything you guys. It's just times have changed. They always change. You got to change with them, and I definitely know that. But let's say, Jerry, when you guys were wrestling, there'd be five matches on the card. So you guys, each match, you guys you'd go 15, 20, 25 minutes each match. And your first match, keep it on the mat. Next, in the ring and the mat. And, every match served its purpose. And then, you guys, by the time you made it to WWF at the time, you guys had already you've been a heel in a territory. You've been a babyface in a territory. You've been tag team. You've been singles. You've been a manager. You've been under a mask. You've done everything. By the time you got there, you guys you're at the top of your games. So I think what happened now is that this is their first territory. These guys is WWF or WWE, and that's all they know now. So to me, you can't learn this business in 2 years. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, and it's hard when it's your first territory. Like
absolutely,
I think that's so important. Our first territory, Jerry's first territory. I mean, that was a different guy that wrestled 10 years later.
Bro, you were in world class. John, you started in world class. You were in Japan. You wrestled in Europe. With Finley, and you were over there for 3 months. And you polished. You already made most of your mistakes before you ever.
That's right. off national television, not on
All
national
national
television.
TV,
Correct.
exactly. Yeah,
Big
good
difference.
point.
Big
That's right.
difference.
I made mistakes in matches, in Kumamoto, Japan, where nobody, that saw it outside of that arena.
Right.
And then by the time you get to WWE, you know how it was back then. You'd already been. It was like being in the NFL. You knew guys made it somewhere in college.
Right.
Now guys are going straight to the NFL, and you don't know if they're going to make it or not, and they're having to learn on national television. I just don't know how to make it today. I think it's much tougher for these guys today than it was for us, because we had such a learning process of so many different territories and so many different wonderful teachers.
Yeah, and the teachers, that's another point. The teachers are they're dying. It's like I said, lost art. There's not these people to teach the people anymore. By the time you got to WWF at the time, you still took you a while to make it. You'd been everywhere already. It still took you a while to make it. Right before, look at before you rose to JBL character. That's after how many years in the business did that happen?
Oh yeah, I got there in '95, and JBL was in 2004. So it was.
When did you start in the business?
Oh, in '90. So I'd wrestled. I'd already wrestled. I spent 2 years in Europe. Like everybody. I'd wrestled Mexico. I'd wrestled Japan. I'd wrestled Korea.
So you're already looking at 12, 15 years in.
That's right. Yeah. And not only 12, 15 years in, but 12, 15 years in of having 250 or more matches a year.
Right.
A lot of these guys now, they're in 10 years, but they're having, a couple matches a month.
Yeah.
And
that's
I'm not knocking them. I'm saying, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not their fault. It's absolutely not their fault, because if you look at their matches, they're much better athletes than we were. The stuff that they can do, they're much better athletes. But what we do in the ring, and that's what I tell people always, and I have to explain when I'm doing a movie set or whatever. What we do is we tell stories. It looks like we're being athletes, but we're using athleticism to tell a story. We're storytellers.
One thing about storytelling in coaching, Mondo I didn't realize this until I started looking up your bio and stuff, getting ready for the interview, Mondo was the first glow coordinator, right? Before you were. Is that how the connection that got you there?
Well, he was the original glow coordinator for the original show in 86,
right.
Whatever it was. The original glow ladies. He was the original teacher. He was there for about a season or two and then went off. So when they were revamping it, somebody brought it to my attention. I saw on Variety or one of the news outlets that, hey, Genji Cohen is revamping Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. So I tried to, I'm like, I got to get in touch with this girl. So I tried to get in touch with her. I tried to get in touch with Liz Playhive, the other creator, or Carly Mensch. And it's impossible. There's no way to contact Brad Pitt. It's not going to happen. So it didn't happen. And then out of the blue, the stunt coordinator, Shauna Duggins, she was smart enough to know that, hey, I'm a stunt coordinator, but this is wrestling. I need to get a wrestling coordinator in here. And she had worked on Supergirl with Eve Torres. And Eve, so she called Eve, and she knew that Eve was an ex-WWE or WWE wrestler. She called Eve and goes, hey, do you know anybody I can talk to about this? And she said, call Chavo. She called me out of the blue. I had to go in. I had to interview. And, I guess they were interviewing 10 or 12 people. And so I got the job, but I didn't know until after the fourth season ended, was done, and COVID kind of put a shutdown to that. The creators, Liz Playhive and Carly Mensch, they talked to me and they said, hey, Chavo, I don't know if you knew, but it's a woman show. Women wrestlers, many women directors, women creators. We were dead set on having a woman wrestling coordinator. It goes, and then you walked in the room and you were the guy. We didn't want a guy coordinator. You changed our minds. And I was like, really? I was like, I didn't even know that. She said, we wanted a woman coordinator.
Did they know the history with Mondo?
They didn't at first. And then when I interviewed in front of a round table for all the producers, the creators, writers. There must have been 15 people in the room. And so I came in and interviewed and was talking to them. And I think I brought it up. Well, there was a guy named Christopher. I don't remember his name, but Christopher. Something. He had written a Broadway play called the Wonderful World, the Incredible World of Chad Deity, something like that. I'm messing up, but it's something like that. And he said at the time when he wrote it was a Broadway play or off-Broadway play. He said, Chavo, I wrote this with you in mind. I said, how did you do that? He said, well, it's about a guy who got so good at putting people over, making other people look good, that was his spot. There was nobody there to make him look good because he was so good at making everybody else look good. I said, really? I go, oh, I think that's a compliment. Okay, thank you. So when I did that round table, he was not a writer of the show, but like like a historian for the show type thing, you know. And they said, hey, someone wants to say hi. So he came in and, hey man, how you doing? I said, oh, hey man. We started talking, and he told everybody how he wrote the play, kind of about me. That didn't hurt. That didn't hurt not getting the job. So that I walked out of there and I thought, well, my wife and I had gone up to LA, and we said, hey, I'll interview, whatever. We're gonna go to a steakhouse afterwards, and if I get the job, we got it. If not, no big deal. So we went and had a steak afterwards, and we're drinking a martini, and I got a call from the stunt coordinator, and Shauna goes, hey, I just let you know, I mean, there's no decisions made left, but they loved you. And I was like, really? She said, they loved you. And I looked at my wife and I said, I got this job. I got this job. And sure enough, 2 days later, I got called and I got the job. That's how my career, my Hollywood career kicked off.
That's amazing. It's also amazing. I figured the connection with Mondo was a big help.
It definitely was. All the stars kind of aligned, because I had done right before, about 6 months before, my first job I ever did was a show on NBC called Grimm. And it was like a fairy tale type show where they had a wrestling episode. So Matt Taylor, the stunt coordinator, and Mike Smith, who was a fight coordinator, they go, man, we don't know wrestling. Let's call somebody. They got my name. Somebody gave me my name. They brought me in to play a character, but also to coordinate the wrestling part. So they were friends with the stunt coordinator from Glow. So when I got the call from Shauna, the stunt coordinator of Glow, I said, hey, just call Matt Taylor. And she was, oh, I know them very well. Call them, make sure I'm just not a douchebag. So they called them. Of course, Matt Taylor lied and told them I wasn't a douchebag. But that helped me get the job, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And after learning on the job with Glow, Lucha Underground really helped out. And then now with Young Rock, and doing the show, I'm kind of, those stepping stones have kind of been up. Eventually, I'm going to sit in that director's seat, man. That's my goal.
All right.
Director seat. I follow every director I can, because I learned from watching Vince McMahon and from watching Kevin Dunn. That's from watching, not them teaching me, but they were teaching without teaching me. I would just sit there and watch what they did, and watch the camera guys like Marty and all of our great camera guys, Howie, all the great guys, and just kind of learn all that. So when I got to Lucha Underground, they were Mark Burnett's guys, but they didn't know wrestling at all. So God, I was telling the camera guys how we shoot wrestling. I was telling the sound guys I was telling the director how we switch from. And they're like, how do you? I was telling the wardrobe people how we do this. I mean, the set designs. And they're like, how do you know all this? And I said, I don't know. I think I just know it from watching the best, and that's really what happened. And that's how I'm learning Hollywood. Really, I'll just sit and follow every director I can and sit right behind them. And now when we do the scenes, is Young Rock, which is great. And you've got the creator, Jeff Chang, and we have one of the executive producers who is Jeffrey Walker. Behind the camera and all wrestling scenes, it's me, Jeff Walker, Jeff Chang, and we sit behind that, and we as a team work, and we get those shots. That's pretty cool.
I've always thought the biggest advantage WWE has is Vince and Kevin and the TV production.
Absolutely.
Marty and Stu and these guys, WCW back in the day, famously, they'd bring guys in who did NBA, who don't know wrestling. All these guys, of course, Vince and Kevin, both second generation, Vince, third generation, second generation, what they do. But the production that WWE does, I mean, those guys, they do more live TV than almost anybody, and it shows. I mean, it's amazing.
It's above me. And since I left in 2011, it's got even better. The production is even better. I mean, how could it got better, but their packages together. WrestleMania is now, I mean, our WrestleManias were amazing. Now it rivals Super Bowls. It's so great.
Yeah, and when you want to start up a promotion, it's hard to compete with that learned aspect they have of this is how we do production, because production is so important. You got to have the right guys in front of the camera, but you got to have the right guys behind the camera.
We're in the ring doing our stuff and they're not catching it correctly, then it doesn't matter, you know. And I learned how to tell the director, whether it be Kerwin, whoever, and say, I need you to shoot me here, without telling them, just stop him. And live TV, I wait till that red light came on, and I would sit there. I don't care. It was 5 seconds, just looking at it. Finally, it would come on and go, thank you. You know.
You know, where we've been blessed, all of us, to work with some really talented people and think we know the wrestling business. But those 10 years, I sit there with those headphones on a gorilla position, listen to Kevin Dunn, and I have no reason. I don't work for the company, so I got no reason to blow smoke of it.
Same here.
But I learned, aside from Vince, who is just an educator in deluxe, but sitting there and listening to Kevin, I learned more about our business. I think that I did from Eddie Graham, Bill Watts, or any of the great promoters out there. And this is coming from a guy, everybody, well, he's not he is on our business. He's the one that
Absolutely
creates our business. If you can't learn from guys like that who are more than willing to share their knowledge with you, man, you got a blind side.
Well, you're watching how to do it correctly and do it right. I mean, they're proven. They've been proving it for 30 years and doing it correctly and making big business. You just sit and watch. You go to school every time you'd watch these guys and just being at TV. I'd sit in the truck every chance I got and would just watch how things were done.
And look at the assistant it's given you, out in Hollywood now. You're with the top people in Hollywood, and you can still share knowledge with them, and they learn from you.
Correct. You know what? It's a give and take. If they don't know wrestling, well, I'm teaching them wrestling. They're teaching me Hollywood. It's kind of a give and take. It's really cool. So,
the Young Rock is just a visual podcast, isn't it?
It's awesome. I
think it's tremendous. I love it. But it's basically a podcast that you have actors portraying the stories instead of guys like me and Jerry.
Exactly. They're doing all these stories that we don't know. Of course, we tone them down for TV, but yeah, absolutely. Right. What I love about Young Rock is that it's a fun 30 minutes. They're not dealing with drama and, political views, except for, Rock running for president, political views or misogynistic. It's just a fun show. You watch it and 30 minutes later, you're like, hey, that was a great show. It's fun. And that's what I love about it. I love working on it. We're getting ready to go into season 3 here coming up.
Wow. Awesome.
Yep.
This business is so crazy, especially when you go back, say 60s, 70s, and 80s, those guys. And that's what a lot of the Young Rock covers, is that. Right. And I think that's why podcasts have gotten so popular, why Bruce Pritchard, was the first doing the big podcast. But that's to me, the success of what you're doing with Rock. It's just, people love these old stories. They're crazy. I mean, people have a hard time believing this is actually true.
You are correct. And you said that without letting the cat out of the bag. There's something else coming up that's big, very big, that I was a big part of in creating. And we'll be hearing about that very, very shortly. So now I'm stepping into the creating role now. So now I can't, it hasn't been announced yet, so I gotta keep it under the bag, but we did something pretty cool, and I think you guys are gonna love it.
So next you're gonna come out with your own tequila and you're gonna run for president. So against The Rock.
Please send me a bottle of that tequila.
You got it, man. Well, I already got my own beer out there, that Los Guerreros Mexican Lager. So
how's it doing?
It's going great. Sells out every time.
That's awesome.
Brew enough. We can't brew enough, so we're trying to run right now, getting to the point to where we're licensing out to brew it in bigger places, because it just goes like crazy.
Do you work much with Brian Gewirtz?
I work with him extensively. I work with him extensively for Young Rock. He's an executive producer and wrote one of the shows the last season. So he's in there. He's
such a creative guy, and he's a good guy.
I love him.
We had Mets season tickets 2 years. I think they cost like $30 million, and they were like 4 miles from the field. They weren't. Anyway, we did have tickets.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. I've spent last season. So season 1, we were together for 3 months in Brisbane, and last season we were together for 5 months in the Gold Coast. So I have a second residence basically in Australia.
And The Rock, I mean, this is insane to me. You know, when he came in, I was there, the whole time before he came in. Then he became this super mega star, and thought guys who transcend the genre. Talking about the old Coliseum, Gorgeous George transcended the genre.
Absolutely.
Hogan did. Rock, probably the greatest of all time as far as transcending. He's certainly the biggest box office draw that's ever done it. Just an amazing story. Nobody dislikes him. And for good reason. I don't either. I think everybody's happy for success. Most of the time when you have a guy that's successful, you have a lot of haters that, I can't stand the guy. He's a jerk. I wish he'd fail. Everybody's like, oh man, he's the greatest guy ever. It's amazing.
Guy. He works his butt off. I mean, guy sleeps 3-4 hours a night. He's like Vince, but he works and works so hard. And he's just a very positive guy. His message is always positivity. His message is always, yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. He's gonna be the next Tim Robbins.
That's right. I follow him on Instagram like the rest of the world does.
Right, you're right.
And you're right. I see him be like training. He's got this, like Kevin Nash said one time when he was in the ring, he's the only guy who looks better than his video game character.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
And you look at it, you're actually inspired going, I should go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
But then I don't go, but that's okay. I'm inspired for a short time.
Yeah. He goes and turns into Kerwin White. What he does.
That's right.
Well, that's golf course brothers.
Yeah, if you got any of those old clothes, I still wear them. The Kerwin White stuff.
They might be a little tight for you, a little small. I still wear little boy sizes.
You were in shape back then, right?
Well, Chavo, I've been looking forward to having you on forever. I mean, we've enjoyed being around you my entire life. I love you just like I did Eddie, and it's such a great pleasure to have you on. I'm so happy for your success. You're becoming Mr. Hollywood, which is incredibly well deserved. It's not lucky. It's because you deserve to be there. And you're on vacation right now somewhere over in Europe and Paris and Florence.
I'm in Paris right now. Yep. This is not real. Yes.
So, Chavo, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really do appreciate it. And I got to say on air, my wife always says, Chavo is my favorite.
I love her. She's one of my favorites. I love her. I brag about her a lot. I brag about her anytime I talk to anybody who's in that business. I go, well, do you know a Meredith Whitney? Yeah. Definitely. But anyways, guys, you're two guys that I've definitely respected and called friends, but called mentors for sure. I really appreciate being in here and being able to talk to you guys. Is definitely a highlight for me, guys. Thank you, guys. Love you.
Thank you, John.